My dad called my career filthy and cut me out of the family fortune. Then asked me for $120,000 when my brother wrecked the family business. Henry here, everyone. I manage a pet care chain in New York and am 30. The employment is secure and pays well. My residence, car, and small sunny workplace allow me to work late into the evening. Someone could believe I'm lucky. A proud, loving family is behind me. But no family. Maybe the one I left exactly a year ago. I recall standing in a huge family gathering and saying, I don't belong here anymore. It wasn't an easy decision. When you're at the edge of quiet and disappointment, you must choose, keep going, or break the pattern. I'm presenting this story not to blame anyone or defend myself, but to remind myself that to genuinely live, you must be willing to lose what you believed was impossible. I left my family on Easter Sunday last year without regret. After many frigid spring showers, the sun shone sufficiently to dry the wet. I drove out of Manhattan early, past folks going to church, quietly glad that our family was finally together again. Being on time has always meant arriving 15 minutes early for me, and this time was no different. When I arrived, the house was full of chatter and laughter. It was more crowded than previous holidays, with relatives from near and far, many of whom I recognized by face, but not by name. Mom mentioned Dad had something significant to announce today, not asking what it was. Mom loved chocolate mousse cake from a Brooklyn alleyway bakery, so I put it on the kitchen counter. I usually brought a bottle of red wine, a box of gourmet pastries, or a bouquet of her favorite flowers home in recent years. These tiny presents didn't change our distance, but I hoped they could have maintained a piece of the son I was still striving to be. 20 minutes later, the celebration started normally. Glasses clinking, grilled meat and baked potatoes in the house, and usual chats about real estate, stock prices, and kids' schools. I silently ate and listened at the corner of the table. I didn't join. I didn't need to. About 30 minutes after everyone had settled in, my dad stood up, hoisted his glass of wine and spoke in his booming voice, which he only used for big announcements. Everyone, please quiet down, we have something to share. The place went quiet immediately. He said, our family has come to a decision. Starting today, all the assets including the company, the shares, and the real estate will be handed over to Matteo. The room went silent. My heart slowed by half a beat. Like everyone expected, the clapping was loud, hurried, and enthusiastic, nearly on cue. My mom spoke next, her eyes beaming like she'd found her life's mission. Matteo's been working at the family company for 5 years now, and he'll be the one to carry on the legacy, to take it to the next level. I sat staring at my water glass after their statement. I felt the glasses chill in my fingertips, but it didn't stop my chest pain. Waves of applause hit my chair like hammers. No one solicited my opinion. Nobody looked at me. No one asked, what about Henry? I was there but unnoticed. I was there, but they thought I was out of the story. Though I knew they liked Matteo, I didn't expect this. My younger brother Matteo is 2 years younger. We weren't inseparable as kids, but we never fought. Since my childhood was marked by justice, I thought our parents saw us as equals. Back then, everything was split. 2 birthday cakes, 2 identical candy bags, 2 virtually identical bikes with different colors. Our punishment was always the same when we got in trouble. No one got off easier. After we scribbled on the wall, Mom made us kneel and scrub every pencil mark. No partiality. I thought my family was fair till I was 18, sitting in the living room on an early September evening. Dad heard I wanted to study veterinary medicine. Veterinary doctor. I studied schools, chose one, and got a partial scholarship. I just needed some cash assistance to start. He might ask about my ambitions, give me advice, or just nod encouragement. Instead, he sat with arms crossed, gaze frigid, like I had said something shameful. I'm not putting a single dime into that career. If that's what you want, you're on your own. I lost all hope of what family meant with that one sentence, simple but final. I didn't get it then. I didn't understand how a career choice could make me feel traitorous. It took years to understand that my choices didn't match their agenda. After that, I wasn't the family's pride. That job gradually fell to Matteo. Everything steadily changed after I told my dad I wanted to study veterinary medicine. Through peaceful, progressive detachment, not harsh words or disapproval, I became silent over time. Perhaps that was the price you paid for deviating from your plan. Even though we were growing apart, I never left them when they needed me. I still sent Mom Mother's Day roses. When Dad needed a new AC in summer, I helped. I kept coming when the company struggled. I never kept score. So maybe the betrayal hurt so much because it came from the one person I thought would never treat me like an outsider. My daddy. A year ago, he called late one night, his voice low and wavering, like he'd struggled with himself before calling. I'll never forget what he said. The company was in crisis that night. They needed $80,000 to prevent collapse after a significant contract fell through at the last minute. I suggested writing a formal statement to the family or documenting my firm contributions. But he stopped that immediately. He comforted me with one sentence. When your mother and I are gone, you'll still have a share of the company. This is family business after all. At that point, I asked for nothing else. I wired $80,000 to the company account the next morning. My father's quiet comments after a long phone pause were the only contract. When your mother and I are gone, you'll still have a share of the company. This is family business. And I nodded. He stressed family, which I foolishly thought. But now I think I should have requested a signed agreement. Maybe I should have known. Some individuals only value family when they're needed. At Easter last year, when my father announced that Mateo would inherit everything, I didn't stay quiet like I had so many times. My voice was clear and firm. What about me? The question rang out as the wine glasses hovered. Room plunged into awkward silence. Some individuals stared at me as if they realized I'd been there all along. I heard whispers across the room. That's right. What about Henry? He's Mateo's older brother. As tension grew like a fog, my mother intervened with her usual kind manner, trying to make something cruel appear acceptable. Henry, you already have a career, a house, a car. But Mateo, he has nothing. After she finished, I looked her in the eyes. I spoke softly, yet each syllable hit hard like stones. That career. I built it with my own hands. I left home at 18 and figured everything out on my own. I didn't take a single cent from you or Dad. I earned a scholarship, worked through school, and saved every dollar. Meanwhile, you paid for all of Mateo's tuition and covered all his expenses. And now, you hand everything over to him like I never existed. I'm your son too. Before anyone could answer, Mateo spoke smugly. Mom's right. You shouldn't be competing with me. I spun and pointed at him. Shut your mouth. You don't even have the right to speak. Silence filled the room. Then my dad smashed his hand on the table, his voice shrill and each word a slap. That's enough, Henry. Mateo followed the path we laid out. You didn't. If you hadn't chosen those filthy animals, this company would have been yours. I froze. Then I replied, what the hell are you talking about? That's an insult. Do you even realize that it was thanks to those so-called filthy animals that I made the $80,000 that saved your company? And if you look down on my job that much, pay me back. Right now. After I said it, he stood up, red-faced, eyes flashing, and yelled, I'm not giving you a damn cent. I brought you into this world, raised you, fed you, educated you. Do you know how much I spent on you? And now you're out there cleaning up after dogs and cats. You're an embarrassment. The moment he completed that phrase, I was done. I spoke again after nearly 30 seconds, trying to keep my voice steady. If that's how you feel, then we have nothing to do with each other from now on. Don't come looking for me again. I turned away but stopped to say goodbye, not to apologize. Dad, I never asked to be born. So please don't throw your so-called sacrifices in my face to guilt me into following your path. And don't use them as leverage to force me into carrying the weight of this family. After that, I left with my head held high and never looked back. That night I returned to my place before 9. I immediately went to the bathroom. I blast started the water. It was necessary to wipe away the hatred, injustice, and hurt from that evening. Nearly 20 minutes passed before I left. I felt lighter, and my mind less weighty. But that calm emptiness stayed. I brewed a steaming black coffee to stay awake. As I sat calmly by the window that night, I thought about the day I turned 18, and left home with only an old suitcase, a few pieces of clothing, and the money I'd saved. Despite working part-time, I struggled to afford living expenditures. My parents never asked if I was okay over those years. My first 2 years following graduating were spent in a modest studio apartment. I cut cuts every month to pay school loans. Then something unexpected happened in my third year. A peaceful Sunday afternoon. I had no plans or shifts that day. I had a funny idea. Why not make a pet care video? So I did. I used books and shoeboxes as a tripod, propped up my phone, and spoke like a friend. After finishing, I submitted the video on Facebook and YouTube. I did it for pleasure without expectations. If someone found it, great. If not, no problem. Within 2 days it became viral. Within 48 hours platforms had nearly 3 million views. I was stunned. I refreshed the page, believing it was a glitch. When the comments and messages started coming in, I realized people needed what I had to say. I made additional vids. My initial thought was to impart knowledge. I got my first $2,000 from ads and sponsorships a month later. I stared at that number on my screen for a long time, surprised, anxious, and wondering if I was dreaming. But the number grew. 9 months later, I had 1 million YouTube subscribers. I had over 2 million followers across all platforms in just 1 year. Then pet care brands reached out. They wanted to collaborate, sponsor videos, and offer me goods to review. I understood this wasn't a hobby anymore. It was something more. Finally, with crowd support, I opened my own pet care store. I named the company Whisker and Paw because I wanted to share kindness and love, something my family never gave me as a child. First location was more successful than expected. Perhaps it was because of the community that had backed me since my earliest films. Or because people could sense my sincerity in treating all customers, two-legged and four-legged. After a few months I had to employ more workers, extend hours, and hunt for a second location. The second branch opened a year later. 4 years later, Whisker and Paw had 7 outlets in the city's boroughs, and over 30 full-time and part-time staff. Several have been with me since the beginning. Few months ago, few joined. But everyone is part of my handmade family. I never gloat about my success, especially to my family and relatives. That lesson came from an industry mentor who gave me advice when I was nobody. He mentioned something I still remember. Never flaunt your success. Not even to your parents. Back then I didn't understand. I thought, why not tell your family? Shouldn't they know your positive deeds first? But as I aged, I understood more. Everyone has envy, some more than others. Sharing your achievement doesn't merely garner admiration. An open wallet, they think. You'll be asked to lend money, offer business ideas, or help out since we're family. When you decline, admiration becomes resentment. Resentment. So I kept quiet. I returned home for the holidays. I still brought pastries, gifts, and maybe a beautiful bottle of wine or a thoughtful gift for Mom. However, I never mentioned money, staff, or new projects. They saw me as Henry, the pet sitter. Personally, I preferred it that way. About 6 months after Easter dinner, I didn't text, call, or go home. My parents, Charles and Margaret Walker, were silent too. 0 check-in texts. No unexpected calls. It felt like my disappearance was planned. I wasn't sad. In those early days, waking up without checking for Mom's message was like a weight lifted. Every night I could sit alone in my quiet apartment, drink late-night coffee, and work without being pulled back into that vague sense of family responsibility. First time in years I could name the feeling. Freedom. However, 6 months ago, my phone rang as I was pouring a second cup of coffee on a Saturday morning. It was Dad. His name appeared on the screen and I froze in the kitchen. I held the half-full coffee cup with my thumb over the decline button, but I didn't touch it. I briefly considered the possibility that they'd altered. Imagine a call to apologize. I don't know why I believed that. Maybe I still wanted to believe they'd thought about everything after that night. Maybe I still had a tiny bit of hope. A few rings later, I replied. My father's voice was immediate. No small talk or hesitation. He adds, Henry, the company's in serious trouble. Mateo signed the wrong contract. Now we're looking at $120,000 in damages. Can you help us? For the family's reputation, for the Walker name. Without thinking, I said, $80,000 was more than enough, Dad. If you want my help, start by paying that back. The other end is silent. He looked furious or disappointed, but I didn't care. I said, before he could respond, and if the only thing you're trying to save is the family name, let me remind you. That name never once stood up for me. I let them figure out the $120,000 mess after hanging up. After rejecting my father on the phone the day before, I figured they'd leave me alone. I misjudged them. Next morning, my doorbell rang loudly, rapidly, and insistently past 7 a.m. No courtesy or hesitation. Pushy, demanding. Like someone was forcing me out. I hesitated when I opened the door. Mateo and my parents stood there. I didn't invite them. I fully blocked the entrance at the threshold, signaling this is no longer our shared place. I knew why they were there, so I said it clearly, but calmly. If you're here for $120,000, turn around. I'm not helping. My words resonated clearly along the quiet hallway despite my low voice. After I finished, my mom retreated. Something else made her eyes crimson, not tears. Maybe stress. Maybe disappointment. Maybe rage. With nowhere to go, she spoke next, attempting to sound gentle but tight. Henry, you have a whole chain of pet care stores. $120,000 isn't that much to you. I'm begging you. If you don't help, the company will collapse. Our family will lose everything. Mateo moved half step forward. My eyes were ignored. I'd never heard his voice so quiet. Henry, please, just this once. I know I messed up. I know I ruined everything. I remained silent. I let them speak. Didn't interrupt. My head didn't tremble. I stared at them, grasping the doorframe like my boundaries would come apart if I let go. After some pause, I replied slowly and clearly, "Leave, before I call the police." My father's face hardened instantaneously. My mother opened her mouth to say more, but I stopped her. I repeated it louder to avoid confusion. I have nothing to do with any of you anymore. You all have to live with the consequences of your choices. Your favoritism, your silence. Mateo too. If the company collapses, that's not a tragedy. It's a consequence. And I'm not responsible for saving anyone. I closed the door. Firm, final. I returned to my cold coffee when they were gone. My mind was already going in another direction. My mind whispered a question that stopped me mid-sip. How did they know I have 7 stores? Never told. I never mentioned it. Always kept my distance. Even at rare family meetings before everything fell apart, I never mentioned my business size or earnings. They didn't follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Then I realized, YouTube. One thing I couldn't hide. I still post pet care videos here. Gentle, meaningful clips about my profession and animal love. Someone they knew may have sent them a link. Maybe they found it themselves. That sent a shudder down my spine. Not because I feared discovery. I knew what they became when they sensed an opportunity to exploit. I acted immediately. I unlocked my phone's message screen and typed each phrase clearly. The sentences were like door knocks. If you, Mom, or Mateo take any action that damages my reputation or business, I will sue. I'm serious. After sending, I prayed they wouldn't cross the border. Mateo kept going despite my clear warning. Next day he posted on Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram. After not reading it right away, friends sent it to me. I was questioned by firm employees and the media. I didn't need to read every word to understand his writing. His post stated that I abandoned my family when they were near bankruptcy, and that I ignored my parents' requests for aid. He stated I expelled them like strangers from my house. Of course, he noted that I had mistreated my flesh and blood before. The plot was so twisted that I couldn't tell what was real. People don't care about the truth. They just want an emotional story with a cold, affluent villain, a struggling, innocent family, and a terrible ending they can gossip about and condemn. I lost clients after Mateo posted that morning. Numerous grooming appointments were canceled. Our company's social media was inundated. I received hate mail in my inbox. And I risked closing my businesses if I didn't act. That afternoon I saw Brian, my old buddy and attorney. He helped me write my first store lease. I texted him one sentence without calling. I need to see you urgently. Between 2 meetings, Brian fit me in. His workplace was clean, quiet, and bright from a wall of windows when I visited. As I explained everything, he sat behind his desk with his fingers intertwined. He received printed comments, revenue figures illustrating the impact, and a screenshot of Mateo's initial post, which I had saved. After I finished, he looked up, folded his arms, and gave me an unreadable half-smile. Then Brian said, "You just hit the jackpot, Henry." I frowned. I gently asked after a few seconds, "What do you mean?" Brian laughed and leaned his head toward me. "I mean, you've got nothing to worry about. Everything Mateo's done, the post, the damage to your business, and your personal and brand reputation, adds to a solid civil case. And with the amount of evidence you've got, I can tell you right now, you're looking at a pretty big payout." I felt like a weight had been lifted. Brian continued calmly. "Mateo is going to be held accountable for what he's done, legally and financially. And if the court rules fairly, the compensation could exceed everything you've lost." I stopped talking. "Yes," I nodded. I then opened my backpack, laid my prepared paperwork on the table, and told Brian, "Draft the case. I'm giving you full authority to handle this." Brian smiled and offered his hand. Not for congratulations, but for a firm start. That afternoon, I signed the power of attorney. There was no warning text, waiting for someone to change, or emotion this time. Going to sue. I felt guilt-free for the first time. Mateo's lawyer contacted Brian weeks after I signed the power of attorney. They wanted settlement talk. Not surprised. Like them, they only arrive at the table from the edge. They only pretend to resolve things gently after losing control. As expected, Brian called me into his office Thursday afternoon. He casually showed me a tiny file and remarked, "Your family wants to propose a deal." Looking at him, I said nothing. Brian opened the file, slid the top page to me and continued. "They want to sell the company. In exchange, they'd like to stay on as internal advisors." I scanned the lines from a seat. Nothing was technically wrong. Nothing was illogical. I only wanted no part of them anymore. I looked up, my voice calm and clear, not sour, like someone done with needless concessions. "Tell them I'm not interested." Brian nodded slightly. Why wasn't asked. I got up, got my coat, and turned to him before leaving. "I'm not buying the company. I'm not hiring relatives as consultants." I hesitated, then added to finish, "I'm not saving a family just to keep being treated like a walking wallet." The trial began 3 months after Mateo uploaded the fraudulent information. Although the Manhattan District Courthouse was close to my flat, I left earlier that morning. I needed a few quiet minutes in the car to breathe, regain my composure, and remember that I was doing the right thing for justice, not anger. I entered the courtroom to find Mateo. He sat next to his lawyer, apprehensive and trying to stay calm. The arrogance and contemptuous attitude he gave me when we argued at home were gone. He gazed down more than up that day. I looked forward to it. Brian was ready. He listed every loss, canceled contracts, store closures, income declines, and employee compensation. Official stamps, receipts, and paperwork supported every claim. Nothing exaggerated. Mateo's team claimed the message was personal, that they didn't expect the effects, and that people misinterpreted. But no one in that courtroom thought nearly 30,000 shares were a misunderstanding. I kept my head down as the judge read the summary judgment. No need to visit Mateo. I listened calmly as the words came out. The defendant, Mateo Walker, is found liable for significant commercial damages, and is ordered to compensate the plaintiff, Henry Walker, for direct losses totaling $248,000. Silence followed the verdict. I rose. Mateo wasn't looked at. They weren't there, so I didn't look for their reaction. I left the courtroom after putting a period at the end of a long, odd sentence that didn't need to be written. I triumphed. Not to teach anyone, but because I stopped slacking. After the litigation, I heard Mateo had to sell the company, once termed the family legacy, and his house to pay me $248,000. Not asking for information. I didn't investigate. I didn't question his method. I didn't care anymore. I only needed to know that they ignored my warning. They selected that road, so they paid the price. The next 6 months were peaceful. But 3 days ago, early in the morning, it all came back in a familiar way. It was Saturday. My doorbell rang at 7 a.m., the same time they asked for $120,000. The sky was dismal. After opening the door, I was astonished to see my mother. Her eyes crimson, face sunken, hand grasping her bag strap, like it was the only thing preventing her from breaking apart. First, she was silent. Her voice was tiny and husky as she said, "Your father. He's in the hospital. It's serious this time. The treatment is estimated to cost close to $20,000. I know I was wrong, but please, just this once, help me." Stood still. I wasn't angry then. My pity was absent. Just a sense of emptiness in my chest, one I'd experienced too often when I realized I was in the same circle again. I lingered on her. I whispered, more like an exhalation. "To me, my parents died the day both of you let Mateo destroy my career and said nothing. And I don't give money to the dead." She froze. I didn't weep. No more pleading. Standing there with twitching lips, she seemed to want to say something but couldn't. I didn't delay. I breathed deeply and said clearly, "Ask your heir." I carefully closed the door to let her know it wouldn't open again. Some of you may believe I'm nasty, cold-hearted, or unforgiving by now. If that's what you're thinking, don't judge me right away. In fact, I went to the hospital that afternoon after my mother left. I avoided my father's room. I didn't stand by the window like in the movies. I called the information desk with his name and requested an update. I went there to confirm her truthfulness. Indeed she had. She was right. My father was hospitalized and his treatment cost about $20,000. My documents were in front of me. I nearly took out my credit card. However, my mind immediately returned to Easter 1 year earlier, when they lifted their glasses, publicly handed everything over to Mateo, and implored me to understand. I called a couple people the next morning, still confused from the day before. I checked that my parents owned their house with real estate contacts. It wasn't mortgaged. It wasn't transferred. It's worth about $400,000. They may readily sell such assets to pay medical expenditures. I didn't pay hospital expenses. I wrote my mother one message. "You still have the house. Sell it to pay for Dad's treatment." She didn't reply. She may have hesitated out of attachment, or because that house was always meant for Mateo. Maybe she couldn't believe I wouldn't intervene again. No matter her excuse, I don't care. They decide whether to sell or keep it. I've made my own. I won't return. After everything, I don't expect anything from my family. I still believe in family. Now I know. Family isn't always where you're born. Sometimes you choose to belong. I thought they'd appreciate my effort and sacrifice if I tried hard enough. However, some people only appreciate what you've given when you're done. I don't want this story to anger or sadden anyone. I'm posting it because I think someone is listening. Someone is in my shoes. Expected to carry. Expected comprehension. Only because they did better, are they expected to constantly be strong. I'll say one thing to you. You're not horrible for declining. You're not selfish for refusing repeated abuse. Sometimes kindness needs limits. Sometimes one-sided love must be let go if you're the only one clinging on. Before I finish, I want to ask you, the ones who've stayed and listened to the end. Was I wrong to leave a family that had repeatedly treated me like a backup plan and abandoned me when I had nothing to give? Was I overly harsh for refusing to help someone who had rejected me, especially when I needed them most? Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama with me. If you love Reddit family drama, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.